If you jump from this bridge down into the river below, you won't just get wet, you'll be arrested. This is Devil's Bridge in Cumbria, and it's home not only to some interesting folklore, but to a highly specific local bylaw that will land any daring divers with a hefty fine. That is, if they survive. And we're about to make our way up the bank of the River Lune here to see this infamous drop for ourselves and find out exactly how the summer pastime became a criminal offence. So let's go check it out. Now this taps into what must be a universal human desire that many people have to jump from high places into bodies of water. Whether it's rocks, cliff faces or bridges, I can think of countless stories, even just in the small area that I've grown up in the north of England. And they're often accompanied with horror stories, cautionary tales, I think, to try and deter kids especially from jumping from these high places. And in most cases, it's hard to tell how true these tales are. But with Devil's Bridge, where we're heading to right now, things are a little bit different. It hasn't always been illegal to jump from Devil's Bridge, but we've got records that tell us that even from as early as the 70s, there have been signs displayed here to try and deter any daring jumpers. So that tells us, at least for the last several decades, that there's been enough incidents and problems here to make people want to put signs up back then in the 1970s. But this has probably been going on way before then as well. The bridge itself is actually incredibly historic. We don't know exactly when it was built, but most likely sometime either in the 12 or 1300s. And let's face it, humans haven't changed much since then. So I can only imagine that the desire many people have these days to jump from it was still present back then. And despite the numerous accidents and emergency service call-outs, it wasn't until the 90s that this new law was put in place. Now this particular type of law is called a bylaw, and bylaws are put in place by local councils and they apply only to a very specific area. And I was curious to get a hold of this bylaw so that we could see what's the exact wording, what's the criteria, what are the consequences. So I checked the UK government website and it turns out they don't hold copies of local councils' bylaws. You need to go to the council themselves. And so I called up Westmoreland and Furness Council. I went through several stages of their automated telephone directory and eventually the phone starts ringing. And about 10 seconds later, I get another automated message saying this telephone destination is no longer active. So mission failed on that front. And so I was left wondering whether this bylaw is just a bit of a deterrent, a scare tactic, if you like. But it turns out it's not. It has been enforced before. A fair few years back now, in 2013, a man was fined for jumping from Devil's Bridge. He was spotted, reported and caught, and he received a £170 fine, which today in 2026, accounting for inflation, would be about £240. And some people watching this might be thinking, this is ridiculous. As long as adults understand the situation, the risks, surely they can make their own decisions. And I can see that side of the argument, but if we go back just 1 year prior, we'll start to understand why the rules were being applied quite strictly. Because in 2012, unfortunately, a young man died after jumping from Devil's Bridge. The main driving force behind this bylaw, from what I can understand, was all the additional strain being put on the local emergency services. Strain that the council quite fairly said was avoidable, and taking those resources away from medical emergencies that are unavoidable. I haven't managed to find any exact numbers that catalogue the incidents that have happened here over the years, but I've visited many of the places around the north of England with bridges that people do jump off and accidents do happen, and they don't have bylaws. So I can only imagine there must have been quite a lot of problems happening here. Now apparently there are signs on the bridge that tell people about this bylaw, but I'm curious to see how prominent they are. Are they easy to see? And of course, I want to see the sheer size of this drop. So let's go and take a look. There we go, Devil's Bridge. I'll have a look from beneath first, see what the deal is. Pretty heavy place to land. Now naturally the water levels here vary quite a lot. Going by the records, the depth of the water can be as low as 4 meters. This is actually pretty awkward to scramble across as well. Let's just go quick POV while I can use 2 hands. On top of that low depth and all these horrible rocks, the height of the drop, of course, varies too. On record, it can range from 30 to 40 feet. So in a lot of ways, it's quite misleading, because I'm sure a lot of people would look at this and think, yeah, fine, looks like fun. And if there hadn't been so many horrible accidents here, I'd be inclined to agree with you. Now let's go and take a look from up top and see if we can find these signs. To be honest, you could get an injury just climbing out of there. Those rocks are about a 45-degree angle. I think this is what we're looking for. No person shall, without reasonable excuse, jump from Devil's Bridge. Any person offending against this bylaw shall be liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding level 2 on the standard scale. Interesting that there's a caveat in there, if you have a reasonable excuse. I do wonder what would fall into that category. Maybe to save somebody else. So to be fair, you would probably see that if you're walking up to the bridge. This place is very popular though, particularly in summertime. So if there's a lot of foot traffic here, people stop off, they visit Kirkby Lonsdale, the town just next door. A lot of bikers come here, people come for picnics. So if it's busy and you're not really paying attention, you could miss the sign. And of course, some people are just going to jump anyway. But here's how it looks. And I'll be honest, standing up here, I see the appeal. If you came here unknowingly, didn't think too much about what's down there and maybe how shallow that can be, you could have a bad time. The folklore, by the way, that's tied to the name of this bridge, well, there are a few versions, but the most commonly repeated one is of a woman who lost control of one of her cows, who strayed across the river and she was unable to bring it back. And the devil appeared and said, I'll build you a bridge, but in return, I want the first soul that crosses it. And she agreed. The devil built the bridge, and instead of walking over it herself, she threw some bread. Would have been a pretty solid throwing arm she's got, looking at it now. But she threw some bread, and her dog ran over the bridge instead of her. And as the story goes, outwitting the devil. Now maybe I'm a little bit thick, or at minimum pedantic, because I was thinking, do dogs not have souls? Did she not just sell her dog's soul to the devil? Either way, it's a good story, and quite a common one that's attached to other bridges around Wales, other parts of England, and maybe other countries too. What do you think about the bylaw though? Let me know in the comments. And I would say, let me know if you've jumped off there, but given that it's illegal, you might not want to own up to that. Regardless though, if you're looking for somewhere to visit this summer around the north of England, this is a bit precarious. This is easily an area I can recommend. We're barely over the border of Lancashire into Cumbria, but there is tons of amazing countryside around here, loads of places to explore. You'll want to try and get some good weather if you can, but it's well worth the trip. Thank you so much for watching this video, supporting the channel. Even if you've only watched one video on this channel, it all helps to support and go towards future episodes. So if you like what you've seen, do stick around, there's more on the way. Please consider subscribing as well. And I want to give a massive thank you to all of our channel members who help to fund a lot of what goes on behind the scenes in these videos. We've got some fun stuff coming up very soon, and fingers crossed, I'll see you there.